Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're getting into some really fascinating excerpts from Hindi literary work, Ghar Sadak.
That's right, A House by the Road. And what we have here, it's not like, data points or historical records.
Wow.
It's more like these vivid literary snapshots, concentrated bits of human experience, really.
Yeah, they give you these glimpses into the characters' lives, their relationships. It's quite intricate.
Exactly.
So our mission today, really, in this deep dive, is to look beyond what seems like maybe simple interactions on the surface. We want to try and uncover the social dynamics going on, the emotional stuff, the stories bubbling underneath.
Yeah, unpacking those layers, trying to find those moments that give you a flash of insight into, well, human nature and the specific society these people are in.
Precisely. Okay, so let's dive in. We start with a visitor arriving at Debu's home. What does that initial scene sort of set up for us?
Well, right away you get this powerful sense of humble simplicity. It's very grounded.
How so?
The description of the house itself, it's built from, bamboo, rope, maybe some bricks. It just paints a picture of basic shelter, doesn't it?
It really does. Very basic.
But inside, you see the essentials. There's a cot, a box, probably doing double duty for storage and seating, maybe a lamp, some cooking things, sparse.
And nestled amongst all that, what's the detail that really jumps out?
Yes. The school books, placed on a sort of makeshift shelf above the cot.
Right.
And that one detail, well, it speaks volumes, doesn't it? It's about aspiration.
Yeah, a desire for something more.
A hint that maybe education is seen as a way out, a way to, transcend the immediate circumstances.
It really feels like that. And Debu himself, his reaction is this kind of restless hospitality. He's keen to make the visitor comfortable.
Yes, very much so. And there's that poignant bit where the visitor observes Debu's few belongings and sees them as a kind of heritage.
Oh, what does that tell us, that observation? Seeing heritage in simple things.
Well, it suggests a connection to the past, maybe a sense that even these modest items carry weight, carry history, family history.
So heritage isn't just about grand estates or wealth.
Exactly. It can live in the simple tools, the objects that have kept a family going. And we also learn, importantly, that Debu's recently married and his parents aren't around. Which starts to fill in the picture of his current life, his responsibilities right now.
Right. Sets the stage. And that stage includes the social world outside his door. We meet Madar and this gathering spot, the Ghar. What's the deal with the Ghar?
These kinds of informal spots, the Ghar here, they're vital in communities like this. Social hubs.
Okay.
Places where news is shared, people connect, but also where, social rules are kind of reinforced and sometimes hierarchies get played out.
Which seems to be exactly what happens when Madar shows up. His remarks about the visitor and Debu hanging out, they feel a bit sharp, don't they?
Definitely condescending. There's an undercurrent there, a criticism almost.
Of what? Their friendship.
Oh.
Which is chillin'.
Yeah, maybe suggesting their activities, their leisure time, is somehow unproductive. Or maybe not what Madar thinks they should be doing. It shows how even just relaxing can be judged socially.
But they don't just take it, do they? Debu and the visitor push back a little.
They do. They say, well, we relax after studying. It's a small thing, but it's significant.
Oh, it's significant.
It's a subtle assertion. They're claiming their right to that leisure, framing it as earned. And apparently it worked to some extent. Debu faced less public criticism after that.
Interesting. And this whole interaction triggers a memory for the visitor, right? About feeling Debu's absence once in a similar kind of judgmental atmosphere.
Yes, and that memory seems to be a real driving force for him.
How so?
It highlights how feeling like an outsider or missing that support when you feel judged can really fuel a desire for change, for something different.
So it pushed him towards education, getting a job.
Exactly. A path that maybe offered a bit more independence, less vulnerability to those kinds of social pressures, a way to break free, maybe?
Okay, let's shift a bit and focus on the bond itself between Debu and the visitor, Bawa. When Bawa leaves, Debu feels this real emptiness, loneliness.
Yeah, that really speaks volumes about the depth of their friendship, doesn't it?
It really does.
Bawa's presence clearly means a lot to Debu. It suggests it's not just about having someone to hang out with, but maybe deeper emotional support, shared understanding.
And interestingly, Debu seems to separate his feelings for Bawa from his feelings about Bawa's mother, who he finds annoying.
Right, which is quite nuanced. It shows he values Bawa for Bawa himself, his kindness, his empathy, his helpfulness.
Regardless of the mother.
Exactly. It highlights that their bond is based on individual character, not just family ties.
And this admiration, this bond, leads Debu to have specific hope involving Bawa, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Debu hopes Bawa, who's apparently a union leader at the colliery, can pull some strings and get him a job there.
Which tells us.
Well, it shows a reliance on personal connections, doesn't it, for getting ahead? And it underlines how much influence Debu perceives Bawa to have. It also hints at how limited other opportunities might be.
Okay, now we get a peek into Debu's home life, his interactions with his wife. What do we learn there?
Even in small exchanges, like about a worn-out mat or something, you see this tenderness and intimacy. Debu teases her gently. She voices practical worries. It paints a picture of a close relationship, built on everyday stuff, affection.
And then there's Gidru Mama. Who's he?
Gidru Mama seems to be the local entertainer, someone who brings a bit of lightness, maybe some mimicry, stories, a source of fun. These figures are often really important for community spirit, providing a bit of emotional release.
A bit of joy. Yeah. But there's also a shadow of worry in Debu's wife's thoughts, isn't there?
There is. She starts thinking about Debu maybe being away for a long time, like Bawa is.
Right.
And that brings up this fear of loneliness, the vulnerability of separation, especially for the women left behind. It adds a layer of concern.
Yet, right before she goes off to visit Bawa's place, there's this sweet, playful moment between her and Debu.
Yes. That little interaction, it just reinforces their connection, their ability to find joy and affection in these small, everyday moments, even with potential worries hanging around, shows the strength of their bond.
So she heads over to Bawa's. This visit gives us more insight this time into the dynamics between the women. She's thinking a lot about what to wear.
She is, and her thoughts about her clothes, contrasting her simple sari with maybe what Bawa's wife might wear, it reveals those subtle social pressures,
Comparisons.
Yeah, comparisons about status, about wealth, things like jewelry being markers of affluence.
But she also criticizes herself for thinking that way.
Right, which is really interesting. It suggests she's self-aware, maybe a bit uncomfortable with that focus on material things. She seems to be grappling with wanting to fit in maybe, but also seeing the superficiality of it all.
And in the end, she picks a simple sari and shares a laugh with Debu before she goes.
That little detail, it just grounds them again, shows their connection is more about them than about appearances.
Okay, so she arrives at Bawa's. The reception seems warm, especially with Bawa's mother, Boji. What's the vibe there?
It feels familiar, easy. There's playful banter, teasing. It suggests these women know each other well. There's a comfortable social circle there.
And the conversation touches on things like food habits changing, traditions.
Yeah, that's a little window into the community itself, isn't it? It hints that things are maybe in flux, traditional ways bumping up against newer trends. You get a sense of cultural evolution.
And that anecdote about Bawa at the fair as a kid.
Right, and the restrictions back then. It just helps paint a richer picture of the social norms, how things might have been stricter before.
Even when Debu's wife leaves, the teasing continues. It seems like a constant feature.
It does. It just reinforces that sense of community, the importance of these relationships. And the anticipation of Debu coming back also keeps their marriage central to this social world.
Then the scene shifts. It's Diwali at Bawa's place. How does this feel different from Debu's home?
Oh, the contrast is quite clear. The description implies more abundance, more festivity at Bawa's. It subtly highlights the socioeconomic differences between the two families, even within the same community.
And Bawa does something thoughtful, suggesting his wife give a sari to Debu's wife.
Yes, that's a key moment. It shows his empathy, his awareness of their different situations. It's an act of kindness, trying to bridge that gap a little, shows his compassionate side.
And he goes to invite Debu personally, too.
Right, reinforcing how much he values the friendship, especially at important times like Diwali. He even recalls Debu's innocent comments from a previous visit, showing that connection.
Their meeting is again filled with that easy banter. Why is that warmth important here?
It just underscores the strength of their bond. It seems to persist despite their different circumstances. It sets a baseline of friendship that makes what happens later even more impactful.
Then there's the invitation to eat. Debu's wife is shy at first.
Yeah, that probably reflects social customs, maybe feeling a bit out of place in a slightly more affluent setting, or deference to Boji, perhaps. Bawa encouraging her helps smooth that over.
And the meal itself. Simple, but shared.
Exactly. It's a moment of connection, sharing food that kind of transcends the social differences. The simple food becomes symbolic of their common ground.
But even amidst the Diwali celebrations, there's a hint of something ominous.
There is, yeah. The talk about firecrackers and that story about the goat getting hit by a rocket, it feels like foreshadowing, a little warning sign that things might not stay peaceful, that danger could be lurking somewhere.
And that sense of unease clicks right up at the arrival of a telegram.
Bang. Yeah, the telegram completely disrupts things. Bao's wife suddenly needs to leave, go to her parents. It throws everything off kilter.
Introduces unpredictability.
Right. And the little playful argument they have about her going, it adds a touch of realism to the disruption, but the underlying news is serious.
Bao goes to tell Debu, and then there are these interactions back at his place with Boji, and then Debu again. Things feel increasingly tense, don't they?
They really do. You get this feeling something's wrong, but it's not quite out in the open. Boji mentions thinking Debu got hurt somehow, and Debu seems oddly insistent about going to the fair, even though Bawa is clearly distracted.
Miscommunication. Or just Bawa being preoccupied.
Probably both. There's a disconnect. Bawa's worried about the telegram, the others aren't fully aware, or maybe Debu's trying to distract him. It creates this unease.
And Debu keeps pushing, questioning Bawa's mood. It shows he knows his friend well.
It really does. It highlights how close they are. Debu picks up on the subtle cues. Bawa's internal struggle about whether to reveal the telegram, maybe wanting to protect Debu, maybe just keep the mood light a bit longer. It shows his own anxiety.
Even Debu's teasing about Bawa getting angry easily.
Yeah, maybe it's his way of trying to lighten things or just gently probe what's wrong. And mentioning their constant companionship just emphasizes how unusual Bawa's current distraction is.
Finally, Bawa gives in, shows Debu the telegram. And Debu's reaction is revealing.
Very revealing. He immediately brings up traditional beliefs about auspicious timing for travel.
Right. What does that tell us?
It shows how deeply those traditions influence his thinking, how he interprets events through that cultural lens. Bao's frustration, though, his internal reaction, it hints at a potential clash maybe between tradition and a more pragmatic view.
Then Bao leaves quickly after that.
Yeah, his hurried steps suggest the mood has definitely shifted. The urgency of the telegram takes over.
Okay, so that brings us to part 2. Big shift in setting and tone. Bawa arrives at the colliery.
Yeah, it's a dramatic shift. His sleepless journey, worrying constantly about his wife. The whole mood becomes somber, anxious, very different from the Diwali scene. Even his memory of crowded trains feels different now because of his personal worries.
And we meet new people, Ramphilak, the postman, and Mukherjee, the union secretary.
Right. They represent different parts of this colliery world. Ramphilak connects to the outside, brings news. Mukherjee, along with Bawa as president, shows us the organized labor aspect, the union's presence.
Their first chat mixes personal stuff with union business.
Yeah, hinting at how those two worlds are intertwined for Bawa. Mukherjee even teases him about his wife coming.
Mukherjee visits Bawa's place, and they talk about including Oreo workers in the union. Why mention that?
It highlights the diversity of the workforce there and maybe the challenges of uniting different groups within the union. And Mukherjee also mentions someone losing their house, another hint about how precarious life is for the workers there.
They leave together. Bawa heads to meet the manager, L.K. Upadhyay. What's the feeling there?
Power dynamic. Straight away. Upadhyay commands this informal respect. You know, he holds the cards. Their initial chat is polite, but it's clearly a meeting between boss and, well, union leader.
And Paul was there for a specific reason.
Yes, he's asking for a job for his friend, Devchand Prasad, who we assume is Debu, or at least who Bawa intends the job for.
And the manager agrees, but there's a catch. A big one.
A huge one. He says yes, if Bawa resigns as union president.
Wow. So a direct conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty to his friend versus his union role.
Exactly. It forces a choice.
And Bawa agrees immediately. What does that tell us about his priorities right then?
It really suggests that in that moment, his personal promise to help Debu outweighs everything else. His commitment to his friend comes first, even before his role in the union. He feels immense gratitude, actually.
As he leaves, he runs into Ram Bahadur, who sounds pretty skeptical about the union.
Yeah, Ram Bahadur offers this cynical view, questioning the leaders, the money. It adds another layer, suggesting maybe things aren't perfect within the union itself, potential corruption, or at least mistrust.
Back at Bao's quarters, the women Kuhi, Lolita's mother Juno, are talking about the union too. What tensions surface there?
Ethnic tensions, social divisions. There's this perception that the Bengali management and the union leaders might be favoring some groups over others, maybe marginalizing the Bihari workers. Junu offers a different angle, suggesting maybe the Biharis brought some of it on themselves, adding complexity. It shows the community isn't monolithic.
And this triggers Bao's own memories about student unions, past conflicts.
Right. These reflections show he's aware of these dynamics, the potential for unity, but also the underlying tensions that can tear groups apart. The memory of the college debate, challenging authority, it echoes the colliery situation.
There's also that disturbing memory, the encounter with the woman. What's the significance of bringing that up?
It seems to highlight his own internal conflict with societal norms, with inequalities he witnesses. His choice not to report it, but his lingering discomfort. It speaks to the difficulty of confronting these issues, maybe his own complicity or helplessness.
Back in the present, Mukherjee is keen on getting Shakur, another leader, involved. But Bawa has his own angle.
Yeah, while Mukherjee sees it as good for the union, Bawa's thinking is more about using Shakur's influence indirectly to help solidify Debu's job prospect. His focus is still very much on that personal promise.
He feels uneasy about eating at the Chankana later, worried about Ram Bahadur. Why?
He's probably just weary. Weary from the day, maybe feeling a bit compromised after the deal with the manager, and he likely doesn't want to face Ram Bahadur's critical eye, his suspicions.
And sure enough, he bumps into Ram Bahadur again. But this time, Ram Bahadur seems genuinely concerned.
He does. Alongside the suspicion, there's a sense he's actually worried Bawa is getting in too deep. Might get hurt. It shows a kind of rough care beneath the cynicism. His story about witnessing a fight just underlines how volatile things are and why people might hesitate to get involved.
Bawa's own internal conflict is really building now, isn't it? Wanting connection, but fearing judgment.
Absolutely. He feels isolated, constrained by his role, his actions. He wants to connect, maybe talk to Kurhi, but feels bound by propriety or fear.
And his thoughts drift to Kurhi, then strongly to his wife. What's happening emotionally?
He's longing for simple connection, but wrestling with his own desires and principles. Then the memories of his wife flood in her kindness, her patience, their early days, her growing confidence. It's mixed with guilt, regret about letting her leave.
A real pang of longing hits him.
Yeah, the contrast between those warm memories and his current turmoil just makes him miss her intensely. He regrets sending her away.
Kurhi makes a simple comment, something about a clear head. And it seems to flip a switch.
It does. He abruptly asks her to leave. It feels like he needs space, suddenly, to process something. Maybe her comments sparked a realization or a decision.
And he's flooded with emotion, recalling lines from a folk song.
Yes, a song about separation, loss. It resonates deeply with his own feelings of being adrift, of longing. He even feels his situation is somehow worse than the song scenario, even though his separation isn't final. It shows how profound his distress is.
This emotional low point seems to galvanize him, though. What does he decide?
He decides he has to go home, and that means dealing with Upadi again, which is tangled up with the promise about Debu's job. The two goals merge, getting home, securing the job.
He tries to justify this feeling, connecting it back to his early days at the colliery.
Right, remembering that feeling of being away from home, the value of his homeland only becoming clear in that foreign context. It's like he's realizing that need for connection again. He even remembers trying to cope by writing poetry back then.
Then another folk song comes to mind, one Boji used to sing.
Yeah, about tradition versus modernity, longing a changing world. It fits his own state, grappling with change, his own shifting feelings, the changing world of the colliery.
And then, boom. He remembers that line from Debu's letter, the really powerful one.
The one about his wife's poverty being like a tattered cloth in the wind. It's such a stark image. And Debu's question, would Bawa want that for his own wife? That hits him hard.
Causes real unease, guilt.
Deeply. Overwhelmingly so. And the news in the letter that Babali and his mother are back, and Debu's just waiting eagerly for Bawa's reply. It all intensifies his feeling of responsibility, the weight of his actions.
He remembers getting that letter while busy with work, trying to push the feelings away.
Yeah, showing that internal battle between his duties and his conscience, his emotional turmoil simmering beneath the surface.
Okay, so this leads to the phone call with the manager, Upadhyay. But it takes an unexpected turn.
Right. Bawa calls intending to ask for a meeting, but the manager preempts him, saying he had a suggestion for Bawa, hence the call. It immediately puts Bawa on the back foot, maybe. suggests the manager is driving things.
And the manager's tone shifts, gets serious. He questions Bawa's sort of idealism about the union.
Yeah, he implies Bawa's maybe naive, doesn't fully grasp the realities. It feels like a tactic trying to undermine Bawa's confidence or commitment.
He even challenges the need for the union itself, points out the workers' poor conditions. How does Bawa react?
Bawa pushes back. He defends the union passionately, points out the exploitation, the lack of basic necessities like shoes, the darkness. It shows his core belief in the workers' cause is still there, even as he's about to compromise.
But the manager holds firm on his condition for the job. Resignation for the job.
Yep. It just reinforces the manager's strategic goal
Yeah.
and weaken the union leadership. Offering the job is just the means to that end. Control is the priority.
And Bawa, again, agrees instantly. Enthusiastically, even.
It hammers home his priority. Get that job for Debu. The relief and gratitude he expresses, it's all focused on fulfilling that personal promise, overriding his union role. He's eager to just get the resignation done.
So after the call, resignation done, he tells Kurhi she can go. A simple act, but symbolic.
Very symbolic. His immediate task, the one driving him, feels complete. He believes he's secured Debu's future. You can feel his internal relief, the sense of a burden lifted.
But then Mukherjee arrives, and he's devastated.
Utterly distressed. Bawa's resignation is a huge blow to the union, obviously. Mukherjee probably fears for the movement, suspects Bawa was pressured or insulted. He's concerned for Bawa personally, too, and for what this means for the workers.
Bawa stays firm, though, writes out the resignation while Mukherjee watches.
Yeah, it shows his resolve. He's made his choice. Right or wrong, he's sticking to it, seemingly at peace with prioritizing Debu.
And then Ram Bahadur shows up. His reaction.
Quiet amusement. A knowing smile. It's like he sees through it all, understands Bawa's real motivation wasn't maybe the pure union ideal he projected. Perhaps a little satisfaction, like, I knew it.
And the women nearby are already gossiping, planning a trip to the Balu Bandar.
Right. Shows how quickly news travels, how individual actions become community talk. It ripples outwards.
Okay, part 3. We start with this reflection on how unpredictable the future is. Sets a mood, doesn't it?
Definitely. A somber mood. Foreshadowing that plans and promises might not pan out as expected. Prepares us for things to take a dark turn.
And Bawa is just tormented by how to tell Debu's wife the truth about the job situation, which he now understands is precarious, not the secure thing he thought.
He's agonizing. He knows her hopes, especially with the baby coming. The thought of crushing those dreams he feels he helped build up, it's eating him alive.
That speeding train imagery comes back, amplifying his dread.
Yeah, it's no longer just about travel or progress. Now it feels like it's rushing towards disaster, mirroring his own accelerating anxiety as he gets closer to having to deliver bad news or worse.
And the script reminds us of Debu's pure joy about the job offer. Visiting the temple, that tender farewell.
Oh, that contrast is just heartbreaking. Remembering Debu's absolute hopeful excitement makes the reality Bawa now knows and the reality that's coming even more devastating.
Bawa's earlier words trying to console Debu about being unemployed. They must feel incredibly hollow now. What's his deeper feeling?
Betrayal. He feels betrayed by the manager because the job wasn't the solid opportunity promised. And maybe he feels he's betraying Debu, even if unintentionally.
He decides not to tell Debu about his own resignation yet. Why?
Probably to shield him. Knowing Debu, hearing Bawa resign for him, especially if the job turns out bad, would likely just add another layer of distress and maybe obligation.
Bawa notices the miners seem bolder now, maybe due to the union? The irony.
Yeah, a bitter irony. The very union he just left seems to be having a positive impact, empowering the workers while he's navigated away from it for personal reasons that are turning sour.
His hope for Debu's first day is still there, but it's tinged with this foreboding.
Exactly. The speeding train image shifts again, now feeling like inescapable fate pulling them towards tragedy.
Even the simple moments they share before that first day, the meals, the singing, feel different in retrospect.
They become precious, poignant. Debu singing those folk songs about separation, life's journey. It reveals a depth Bawa maybe hadn't fully grasped and tragically foreshadows what's coming.
And that description of Debu going down into the mine, the dolly, the smell, the darkness.
It's incredibly vivid and symbolic, isn't it? Entering this dangerous alien world, the descent into darkness feels like he's entering a fate he can't escape. It's chilling.
Bawa goes back to his quarters, feeling this strange emptiness.
Yeah, a mix of unease, maybe pity for Debu's situation as he thinks it is, just a tough job, and helplessness. His own routine is different now, too, underlining the changes his resignation brought.
And then the compounder arrives, shattering everything.
The news hits like a physical blow. An accident, a rock fall, Debu involved, Bawa's shock, his denial. It's that raw, immediate reaction to unthinkable tragedy.
The confirmation forces him to face it, and his first thought is how to tell the family.
Yes, the internal turmoil. His own grief crashing against the immediate burden of telling Boji, the family, wanting to shield them but knowing it's impossible. The weight of delivering that news is immense.
He starts that walk towards Boji's house, carrying this unbearable news. The author then offers some final thoughts. What do they add?
They give context. The author mentions the regional language influences, stressing the authenticity. He claims independence from literary schools, suggesting the story grew organically. And that personal note about being a bachelor, writing about marriage, but knowing his destination was always this story, Ghar Sadak par. It speaks to the imaginative power of writing and the story's deep personal significance for him.
So wrapping up our deep dive into Ghar Sadak par.
Yeah.
Wow. We've traced these intertwined lives, Debu and Bawa. It's a story packed with friendship, class, ambition, and just the raw vulnerability of life, isn't it? Ending so tragically.
Absolutely. The excerpts really highlight that stark contrast between hope, individual dreams, and the often brutal realities of their world, their society. Personal aspirations just colliding with these bigger forces, these vulnerabilities.
Leaves you thinking, doesn't it? It makes you wonder, faced with all this uncertainty, these harsh realities, what responsibility do we have to each other? How fragile are our dreams when they hit the hard edges of society and industry?
Yeah. It encourages you to think about the human cost, the stories hitting beneath the surface of everyday life, especially in places like the colliery, where lives can be changed or ended in an instant. What's the real price of progress or just getting by?